Next, China is stepping up efforts to crack down on cybercrime, with an increasing number of people prosecuted over the last 9 months. This year, 30,000 people in China were charged with connection with cyber scams, a year-on-year increase of nearly 50%. In the same period, the number of people prosecuted for assisting cybercrimes grew more than 12% to over 100,000. According to Cybersecurity Ventures, this year the cost of cybercrime globally will top $8 trillion. But they say it could reach $10 trillion over the next 2 years. That's an annual increase of 15%. The cost of cybercrime is equivalent to the size of the world's third largest economy after the United States and China. And it's estimated that cybercrime will cost China more than $1.2 trillion this year, the highest in the world, followed by Brazil and the United States. Well, Deryck Mitchelson is Chief Information Security Officer at cybersecurity firm Check Point. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So can you tell us what is behind this surge in cybercrime?
You've just said it quite clearly. There's a commercial marketplace out there. What we're seeing about an 8% surge in cyber threats at the moment. And it's very easy to carry out a cyber attack. You do not need to be technologically advanced. You can buy a service from a few £100. You can buy access to accounts that have been breached for a few £1,000s. So in the olden days, it used to be you needed to have a lot of technical nous in order to do this. Now you can just go and buy these services. In particular, it's ransomware gangs. Global ransomware gangs are making millions of pounds from cyber crime, so it's increasing all the time. One other thing we're seeing as well is a huge amount of phishing. Phishing is exponentially increased this year, and 90% of cybercrime starts with a phishing email or a smishing email that people click on, and at that point the vulnerability gets into the system. So something we need to be very careful about.
And so what can businesses and individuals do to better safeguard themselves?
So for individuals just need to take, I think, some individual responsibility. So that means tightening up on their passwords. That means not reusing passwords across any sites. They can switch on what we call multi-factor authentication, so that a single password doesn't let you get into any individual account. We do that by default on our bank accounts. We should do it across every account we've got, including email. As far as businesses need to tighten up in every area of security to make sure there are no weak spots. So that's email security, security for mobiles, laptops, security for their cloud services and their commercial services. It's across everything that they do. They need to start to really understand that level of cyber risk.
So that's what we can do as individuals. What about governments? What about policy? What can they do to address these critical gaps in cybersecurity infrastructure and expertise?
Governments need to do a lot more, is exactly what we're looking to do. A lot of the increases we've seen in this 8% surge are hitting the critical infrastructure, in particular education sector, in particular healthcare as well. Governments, I think, need to be working better at a global level in order to make sure we've got international sharing agreements on threats, international frameworks around how we can assess ourselves better to understand the level of cyber risk that we've got. Countries, when they go along to do this, I don't think they're going to tackle the problem, because the threat groups that are attacking us, they're global. They work across borders, they work across regions. The ransomware gangs actually work together. We need to have an international response to this, not a response that stops at our borders.
And Deryck, tech is changing so fast. There's so much innovation. How much do you see advances in technology helping rather than hindering the fight against cybercrime?
It's interesting because the Prime Minister mentioned yesterday around the level of threat we're seeing potentially coming from AI. What we see in the cyber sector is we see AI as one of the best mechanisms to defend against cyber threats. And I'll explain why. A lot of the threat groups are actually using AI to coordinate a lot of these attacks, to expand on these attacks, to work out where the attacks go. We need to use that artificial intelligence in order to actually counter that, to move at the speed of light, to understand what a threat is, and to be able to actually make a change no matter where we see it on the network. If we see a vulnerability in phishing on email, we need to make sure that we close it off on the servers, on the cloud estate as well. It's got to be end-to-end.
Deryck, great to get your thoughts on this issue. Thank you very much indeed. That's Deryck Mitchelson from Check Point.